Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the podcast, Conversations and Connections. I'm your host, Sandy McGregor, and it is a delight to have you here with me today. I am so excited to share faith stories with you. God is so good. He's so faithful. And I love bringing these stories out to you, the listener, so that you can be encouraged. And today we have a very special couple with us today. We have Mallory and Christian Santiago. So thank you so much for joining me here today on the podcast. I can't wait to introduce you and get to know you and talk a little bit about all the things that we have that we discuss we're going to share. So thank you for being here.
Yeah, of course. We're excited.
Yeah.
Yes, yes. So I have a little bit of a connection. I did interview you, Mallory, not too long ago. Mallory is my niece, and Mallory married Christian last year. So you guys are still technically newlyweds, right?
I think it's actually been about a year, more than a year now since.
Is it more than a year?
Because I came December of last year, so it's been a long time, actually.
Oh my goodness. Wow. I have to look back on the date. Yeah, that's amazing. Well, I will link the podcast interview that we had so that people can actually get to know you on a deeper level for sure. But we are here today to talk about the two of you and a whole bunch of different things. So before we get into some of the questions about kind of how you guys are connected and where you are today, let's hear a little bit more about each one of you so we can get to know you better. So we can start with Mallory. Why don't we start with you?
Yeah.
Okay, me. Yeah. Okay. So I grew up in a ministry family. It was funny, we both did. Funny enough, our dads have the same name. Both are Pastor Mark Allen, which is crazy.
That is crazy.
But I grew up loving being involved in ministry and loving church. It was just like one of the best experiences for me growing up in the home I did. But really, once hardship came is when I learned what kind of relationship the Lord wants with me, which is intimate.
Wow.
It had not really clicked for me until really, really hard things started to happen. So, yeah. And then honestly, once I got to Liberty, like the Lord used the women in my life to just shape me. Girlfriends to shape me, and my professors to shape me, insecurity to shape me, and how my professors helped walk me through that. So honestly, like end of high school and college were just completely like transformative for me. But I've always like loved the Lord, but I learned healthy desperation when things got hard.
That is a great concept, healthy desperation. I completely relate to that because it isn't until you get to those spots that you start to really put your trust in God because you have to release everything to Him. And I know from just walking with you through some of those desperate times that you were just like, okay, God, I don't know what to do. Like, show me. So I'm like, okay,
you were there,
Auntie Sandy here. Let's go.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah. I remember coming, visiting, and coming and telling you all of my problems.
But you know what? Honestly, it's a privilege because when you have a safe space to share your heart, it allows you to be vulnerable and then relatable. And you just get to extend this amazing grace to others by saying, I'm here for you. I'm ready to listen and I can pray for you. I can't necessarily change your situation, which is always so hard because you're like, oh, I just wish I could get in there and work this relationship out or change that friendship or help you. But I had to just rest in the fact, like I do with my own kids. You just have to pray and trust them that God knows and He's going to carry you. And He really has. Like your story, Mallory, is just so beautiful how God has carried you and blessed you. Doesn't mean it's been easy, but you've really chosen to rely on Him. And it's been an inspiration to me and to many people for sure. So thank you. Thank you for sharing. How about you, Christian? Tell us a little bit about you so we can get to know you better.
Yeah. So I my walk with the Lord started when I was about 5 years old. I was really young, but I don't know if any of you out there, or maybe even you, Sandy, remember this thing called Bible Man.
Bible Man. It sounds kind of familiar. Was it a cartoon or was it a book?
Really?
No.
Was it a book or cartoon?
Yeah, it was a live action actually.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm
there
sure
was an
my
actual
boys
guy.
watched it.
I don't even. Yeah, I'm not quite sure what his name was, but so I loved the Bible Man series growing up, and then like after the like my mom had bought I think it was a VHS, which is hilarious. Um, but at the end of it, it was like promoting this event that they were going to do. They were going to do a real like play in this church, and it was in the area, and it was in New York, and like I like saw it, and the
Yeah.
date, like the time that we bought the VHS, like the date of the event still hadn't happened yet. It was going to happen.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I think it might have been in New Jersey or somewhere. I really
Doesn't
don't know.
matter.
But they made a call to salvation after that event. And Bible Man made a call to salvation.
I love it.
And I went up as a little kid. I remember there
Wow.
being they really switched gears. Like they stopped the whole skit and like they kind of like did a prayer. They explained the salvation story. So there was a lot of adults there.
Yeah.
But then there was me, and I like raised my hand and I went. And I went
Wow.
up. I remember actually like I was crying and like I was a kid, but I understood. I really got it. It worked. Like the
Yeah.
Bible Man worked. Like
Yeah.
worked. And I then I like to say I had my encounter with Jesus. That's the way I like to put it. Just because like my head knowledge was there and I knew I was saved, but I really wasn't. And I knew I grew up in church, and I grew up in a pastor's family, so I knew all the things, and I knew about God living within me and Him changing me and stuff like that. But I never really got to see it fulfilled until like this one time at a youth service where I was just like at the altar before God, and I was like, use me however you want to use me. And then from then it just became like every single day when I was like must have been 9, or I mean I don't even know. I must have been around 9 years old.
Yeah.
And I would just go to my basement, well my mom's basement, my parents' basement, and I would just play the piano and worship before God every day. Every day I would come back from school and I would go to the piano and I would sing, and because I liked singing. At that point I hadn't I hadn't started singing in public yet. But yeah, so that's kind of how my journey started. But yeah, I've just been really passionate about worship. I've been really passionate about music. And I started making music when I was a sophomore in high school.
Wow.
I picked up GarageBand, and then eventually transitioned into Logic, and then I started making songs, and I knew that it was what I was called to do from the beginning, was to make music. And yeah, that's what I love to do. So I went to school for recording engineering producing, and I love to just make music and really anything, because it's like I'm a very creative person, but I guess it all came from music. But I learned video, I learned audio, I learned technology, just so I could be creative and know how to make
Love that.
my craft at the best it can be. But
Wow.
that's just a little bit of who I am, I guess.
Yeah, no, that's great. That's great. I love it so much. We'll talk a little bit more about the music in a minute, but what I love about what both of you said is the whole concept of this growing up in the faith and the gift of knowing Jesus from a younger age. And I can relate to that as well. You always had known Jesus, you believed in God, but even as we were listening to some baptisms today at church, it's that connection, the head to the heart, where it becomes something personal. And just because you're raised in a Christian home doesn't guarantee you salvation, and it doesn't force you into decision. It's something you have to personally make. And that was my journey as well. I couldn't, like, Grammy and Gramps, they can't make me do something. I had to go through my journey and make it my own faith and really just lean on him myself and discover it for myself. And that's what he did for me. And I love the fact that you both talk about this childlike faith. I think that's just so precious that Jesus can be in your heart at such a young age and to know it. And that Bible verse, don't let anyone look down on you because you're young. I used to say that to the kids all the time here, that your faith, just because you're young, you've got a faith, and God wants us to have a childlike faith, right? So I really love the fact that you shared that. I think that's a really important perspective to remember today. So thanks for sharing that.
Yeah, of course.
So tell me a little bit about, just because we talked about some of the musicianship in your life, maybe Mallory, will start with you. Talk a little bit about your musical journey in life, because you have been able to do some pretty neat things that I don't think you planned on, but just kind of go back maybe even in your teen years. Like what started you toward worship and music and singing?
It's funny. I was like a worshiper as young as like 2.
Mm-hmm.
My mom told me there were 2 songs, and I remember them that I knew all the words to, and I was just singing all the time. Probably really annoying, but I was like singing all the time.
Not from a 2-year-old, no.
Yeah, but I seriously like I was so involved in worship, like in my mom's arms. I remember, like it's so clear in
Mm.
my brain. Um, and then as soon as I was old enough, I started serving on the middle school worship team, and then the middle school worship leader stepped down, and so my youth pastor taught me the 4 chords I needed to know, and I literally sat up there and just like struggled my way through and like led worship, and then
Wow.
um, the high school worship leader stepped down, and so I like directed middle school and high school worship. I was the leader for middle school and high school
Mhm.
ministries, and it was just like the best part of my week. Like there was
Wow.
nothing I looked forward to more, and then I got involved with Sundays. Trial and error for sure. I
Mm-hmm.
disappointed
Mm-hmm.
leadership with my scheduling many times, and I
Mm-hmm.
had to. I was leading adult men older than me when I was 15. That was really brutal. That was really brutal. Um, so I was leading worship about 4 times a week, but it was so life giving, and I just
Wow.
loved it. And so when it came to Liberty, I was like, I knew I wanted to go to a Christian college, and I was like
Mm.
looking at degrees, like what kind of degrees they offered.
Yeah.
And I had no idea what I wanted to do, what I wanted to study, but I saw worship leadership, and I was like, that's what I'm doing. And I never looked back,
Perfect. Yeah.
never once
Yeah.
looked back.
Yeah.
And so honestly, like my settings were never around talented people, which is still a struggle. I still wish that that was a part of my story, but it wasn't. But it was with people who just wanted to lead with the little knowledge they had, and it was just like 3 of us in acoustic groups every
Yeah.
time. That was all that
Yeah.
ever was,
Yeah.
and it was really special.
That is really neat. Did Zane give you your first guitar?
No, actually, he
No.
didn't. My youth pastor did. My youth pastor
Oh,
gave me the guitar he
okay.
traveled the country with,
Oh,
and
okay.
he gave it to me when he after he taught me guitar, and I held on to it. I still have it.
Do
It's
you?
here.
That's great.
Yep. Yeah, it's really precious to me.
That's cool.
Um,
Yeah.
but yeah.
Yeah, that's great. What about you? So I know, Christian, you talked about from a young age, you wanted to play piano and you wanted to sing. So was that something that you started like piano lessons? And then how did that lead you into to going to Liberty? Like, and so maybe talk about your musical journey and then getting to Liberty, and what that's meant to you.
Yeah, so my dad was a musician, and him and his brother were musicians together, and
Mm,
he was a fantastic bass player. He he was amazing. He could do
that's
any
awesome.
style. He would play in church,
Hmm.
and then eventually would become the worship director at our church. So I got to see him be worship director for the majority of his life,
Yeah.
and and he also, before I was born, when he was a young adult, or even early in his marriage, he would gig out with like different salsa bands, jazz bands,
Wow.
whatever, across like New Jersey, New York, and Connecticut, tri-state area.
So it's kind of in
And
your blood.
yeah, so like
Yeah.
I grew up with like, so I grew up playing with like amps and like like
Yeah.
The opposite of me,
XLRs and
pretty much.
cables and
No
yeah.
Hot Wheels, just, cables. No.
Yeah, no, there's some Hot Wheels, yeah, but
But mainly.
yeah, but I grew up like there was instruments everywhere. Like in our house, there's probably like 30 something instruments.
Wow, really?
Yeah, yeah.
Cool.
So I've been wanting to count all of our basses and
We've
guitar.
got at least 10 here.
Yeah, at
Do
least.
you?
At my mom's house, there's like all of my dad's basses, which is like 7 of them.
Yeah.
But
Mm,
yeah. So music was like is in the blood. So,
definitely.
but I wanted to play piano, and I was classically trained from like 5 to 9 ish.
Hmm.
But then I stopped for like a minute there. I stopped for like either 6 months or like
Yeah.
a year. And David taught me um, the 5 chords in the C major scale, and then it brought me back to like
Mm.
learning again, and then I fell in love with it, and then I started
Hmm.
learning, teaching myself on YouTube, and then yeah, the rest is history. I started growing from there. That's what I did, a lot of growth. I
Yeah.
think I just had a lot of reps. Like we were
Mm.
so it was this was back in the day, so like we would just play every service, and
Hmm.
we had like four. Um, I would be playing like sets, full sets, like
Yeah.
4 times a week, like,
Wow. You
or
guys are
sometimes
busy.
five, sometimes five at high school because our high school had a worship team too. I went to a private Christian high school,
Okay.
so like yeah, people ask me like, oh, how do I get started into playing an instrument?
Mm.
You got to get the reps in. Like there's like
Makes
it
sense.
just takes time.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I had a lot of time in church to make
Yeah.
mistakes, to
Yeah.
mess up, tons and tons.
Yeah.
I every Sunday. I mean, every Sunday. There was like hardly any that we missed from when
Yeah.
I was like
Wow.
I joined the worship team when I was 12 to now, like till like when I went away to
This very
college.
day.
Over 10 years of just like
So then
nonstop
going to
playing.
Yeah.
Liberty,
Yeah,
you
and then
went for RP.
yeah, so going to Liberty,
Yeah.
I was kind of scared to go into music.
Hmm.
Um, I think my parents, right, and I understand, like psych me out of like studying music, and they wanted me to have like a secure career.
Right.
They like my mom, she laughs about it now, but
Yeah.
um, yeah, so I didn't. I actually wasted a year. I didn't waste a year. It wasn't wasted, but I thought about doing psychology.
Right.
So, but that was clearly not it. It was not it. And
Yeah.
I just said, you know what, I'm just gonna do it. I'm gonna study recording
Yeah.
and producing
Yeah.
because I felt like it gave me the skills to record, which I
Hmm.
fall in love with.
Yeah.
And it also, just the degree, the way I worked at Liberty was it also trained me musically as well, which I
Mm.
knew would be helpful in when I'm serving at church or wherever else. So,
Yeah. That's amazing. So what brought you to Liberty? And I know that you, Mallory, had said that you were looking for a Christian college in the worship program, but what was it that struck you? Because there are a lot of different colleges in the States. So it's pretty cool that God knew ahead of time, as he does, to bring you guys both to that place um,
mm.
and meet there. It's just such a beautiful story. I love how God
We
does that.
do
So
like
what was it
free
about
marketing
Liberty?
and advertising for Liberty. I swear, like
Yeah,
it's the best place on earth.
best ever.
Yeah.
Absolutely the best place on earth. You have
Yeah.
to go.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Any kid at all has to go to
So
Liberty.
what led you there?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. So well, I had a friend. Uh, his name was Aaron, and he went to our high school. He he was like my first connection into Liberty. Had
Hmm.
a professor. His name was Mr. Micus, and he was like, "You have to go see Liberty. You have to go." And I was thinking about Valley Forge, which is in Pennsylvania, which is a lot smaller of a school,
Okay.
and it's still a great school.
Hmm.
But he was like, I really feel like you and your calling, like you don't. I feel like I want the world to open up for you. That's what he said.
Hmm.
And looking back, like
It did.
it did, and like it was
Me
very true.
too.
Liberty has like it's massive, but at the same
Hmm.
time, when you get there, it becomes so small, your
Yeah.
Mhm.
community,
Yeah.
and
I can see that.
yeah, so that's how I got into it, and I like that it gave me the ability to do music if I really wanted to do that, because I remember at the time I was going to do psychology,
Right.
um, and then it also gave me the psychology too. So I saw the options that it gave me.
That's
So
amazing.
that's
Yeah.
why I liked it.
Yeah. That's really great. So interesting. So when you were at Liberty, can you talk about the music that you have produced and the album that you do have out? Is
Oh
that when
yeah,
that happened?
yeah. So
Yeah.
well, I made an album, not like kind of apart from the school of music, but like it was my first album. I
Hmm.
made it sort of slash in high school, freshman year of college,
Okay.
and that one's called "Stay Right Here." And then I was I feel like I always have songs that I'm like working on. They're
Right.
always in my mind or they're always
Yeah.
there. But there was a song at my in my degree program that was I submitted for a competition, which I never do, and like it was a testimony because I had written the song. It was a really I was it was a hard time in my life, and I was really struggling. I was really
Mm,
alone. I had just got out of like a 4-year relationship, and I was like
mm,
really. broken.
Yeah.
Being a young adult and a young dude who's trying to plan his life,
Yeah.
I felt like I had no plan. So it was like
This was his last year.
my 5th year, because I remember I
Oh,
had to
okay.
take another year, and I remember I wrote this song out of that period of my life, and it's called "My Love Is a Star," and I actually I made it in one day. I remember that I wrote it, and then it took me like maybe 2 days to write it.
Yeah.
And then I was like, okay. And then I'd actually never done that before. I literally got it from start to finish, like
That's incredible.
in one sitting. I was in the songwriting lab for hours.
Wow.
But I showed Sam, but Sam encouraged me to he's a good friend of mine, Sam. He encouraged me to submit it to the competition, and I for some reason it sounds crazy. It sounds like I'm being prideful, but I promise I wasn't. I just like I knew I was.
You just had a sense.
Yeah, because I don't know what it was. I submitted it, and like I remember being like, wow, like, Lord, wouldn't it be crazy if like I won this competition? It'd be a great experience for me in my career.
Yeah.
Be having birthed out of this like really hard time, then I would know that this relationship ending was actually really your will,
Yeah.
And then once I prayed that prayer, I was like, oh snap, I'm gonna win, because I knew it was like I was like, oh crap, I'm gonna win.
Well, do you remember when you found out? I know you're headed back from the gravesite.
Oh yeah, that's right. That's when he texted me.
Yeah.
Wow, that's great. Wow.
Bringing back all the memories, right?
He got the email that he won driving back from his dad's burial.
What?
Yeah.
And I was there. Yeah.
How did I miss? I feel like I missed that. Because your album's incredible. I love it, but I didn't know about this competition part. So congratulations! I missed it.
Oh yeah. So a lot of
we gotta circle back.
A lot of the production of it is I'm really proud of it, but it was a lot of people on it. It was a lot of minds and really great friends of mine.
Yeah.
People in my degree, and a producer. His name is Ben Shive. He's worked with Chris Tomlin and like tons of people.
Wow. Yeah.
Like, great guy. He produced it, and we like produced it together, but he mostly took the lead on it. And all of the students watched as he produced it, and it was like a workshop kind of thing.
Oh, that's great.
A bunch of musicians from Nashville came and helped us record, and
it became a part of your new album.
Yeah.
Only Me and You.
Yeah, and then it became like really the lead single for Only Me and You,
which is his newest album.
Yeah.
Okay.
Only Me and You.
Yeah. Definitely will be linking those so people can check them out.
Oh yeah.
Absolutely. And the song that you did, Mallory.
With you.
With me, but it was you. Which is called Her Prayer, which is absolutely stellar. I love it. Your voice is so beautiful. It's such a worshipful song. So I will link that one as well. This talented couple, I tell you, can't keep up. It's so exciting. I love watching what God is doing in your lives. So back to Liberty just for a minute, and talk about how you guys actually cross paths, because it almost seems logical. You're both in worship or music or different things, video production. You might be in the same circles, but it is a big school. So how did you guys cross paths?
It's so funny because we were in the same circles, but we never recall seeing each other out of the 3 years that we were in the School of Music together. We never recalled seeing each other.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
And so I really wanted to do this like school-wide massive talent show called Coffee House. The entire student body comes, and it starts at 11 p.m. It always has a theme. And this year's theme was X's and XOs. And I was like, I'm going to just do it. I've never done Coffee House. I really want to do it. And the theme was breakup songs and love songs. And I was like, oh, I'm going to do a breakup song. This is going to be so good. And so I was like, who am I going to sing with? Because everybody I knew was either dating someone or weird. And I was like, oh, I don't know, like what to do. And one of our dear mutual friends, like I was hanging out with him, and we were actually heading to lead worship together. And he was like, oh, I've got this friend, his name is Christian, and he's single. And I was like, no. I literally was like, absolutely not. But then later on, I was like, oh, I wonder if he would want to like do Coffee House with me. And so I DM'd him on Christmas break. And I was like, hey, like, I know this is weird. Like, you don't know me. But I was wondering if you'd want to do this duet with me. And he didn't respond for like 3 weeks.
Oh dear.
I was gonna text him again, but I guess not.
Yeah, there was like a
Confusion, whatever.
But I responded. I'd be like, I said yeah.
He said yes. So then, after we met up in a practice room for the first time. That was where we met in front of a piano, sang together within the first 10 minutes of knowing each other, which is kind of fun. And we just had fun, and then we went to lunch super casually together, just like, oh, let's go grab lunch. Like it wasn't like a ask out any type thing. But then after one of our rehearsals,
yeah, I asked.
I was like, you were like, what are you doing after this?
Yeah, yep. I remember I waited for everyone else to leave.
I did too.
Yeah. And then I asked her, I was like, what are you doing after this?
And I was like, oh, I'm gonna go to the practice room. And you were like, want to go to dinner?
Yeah.
And I was like,
okay.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And then we never made it into the talent show.
Yeah, we didn't end up making it.
Oh,
but
things worked out.
Yeah,
but it worked out.
Like, every rehearsal, we kind of
we would hang out after, but like super sneaky because we just didn't want people to. We weren't being secretive, but we just didn't want people to know. I don't know.
Yeah.
We just were like, we
on the down low a little bit.
Us, and it was funny. So we would be like standing waiting for people to leave so we could go to dinner.
Yeah, it was wild because I was in the school of music too, but
we never crossed paths. We had mutual friends.
Yeah. But we had a lot of mutual friends, but we never actually crossed paths. It was like God waited for us to meet.
To be like to be out of our unhealthy relationships for a while, and not a while, but yeah. Yeah,
I always say if I had not met Mallory even just like a month or two or before or even after, it was like the timing was
designed. We always say
our beginning was very, very designed.
Yeah,
by God. And we could talk more about it, but
we could talk.
This could be a whole.
It could be a whole separate podcast.
It could be a whole 2-hour story.
No, the beginning is crazy.
Crazy, yeah.
But I love that God used your beginning in such a beautiful way, and it was meant to be. You wouldn't have. I think about that too in my life. Like if I had met Duncan at a different time or different space, the way that he orchestrated things was perfect. And at the time you can't see it, right? Now that you guys have been together for a little while, you look back and go, that is just incredible. Because really you could have crossed paths and it could have been a different story, but God had a plan and he's worked it out perfectly. That's incredible. And he's using it to bless you and for you guys to honor and glorify him. Mm-hmm. It's really special how that works. Oh, these stories.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah. So then with Mallory, and then now you have to introduce your family to this new guy that you've met. And he's coming in to meet everybody for the first time. And so what I'd like to talk a little bit about right now is the beautiful way that God has crafted your family, Mallory, and how that led me to write my second children's book, which is coming out in a couple of months, called Lucy's Adoption Song. And so the story I felt God lead me to do and write last year was based on Acorn Peter and their journey from Ghana all the way here to the States. And so what I'd love to talk about a little right now is the whole concept of adoption, because Mallory, you have such a unique perspective as a sibling, because your older brother Jake was adopted, and then you have younger siblings that were adopted. So you're kind of like sandwiched in this really unique position. And then Christian, you also have a really unique position as well, because you have come into this family with multiple kids that have been adopted, not just 2, there's 6 out of the 8. So it's such a beautiful story. And I just know that how precious adoption is, because we are God's children and we've been adopted into his family. So adoption is at the heart of our Father. So maybe just share, Mallory, your perspective as a sibling with this whole idea of adoption. I mean, I don't even know how to word it because there's so many ways I could say it, but talk about your journey.
Yeah, it's shifted over time. So I'll go through the stages of each sibling.
That makes sense.
That shows what God did. Mm-hmm. So I have zero recollection of the moment I found out that Jake was adopted. I have zero recollection. No idea. And he just always was. I don't know, because he was there before he beat me and Zane to the family. You know? So I remember always being aware of it, but I didn't really, I don't know. It just kind of was like, this is life. Yeah, he's just adopted. Like, I don't know. I didn't think anything of it at all.
Right.
We just had a great childhood. Like, I just loved being the youngest. I loved, like, I was like spoiled rotten. But I loved our little family, and I loved the dynamic, and it like rarely to ever never crossed my mind that Jake was adopted. And then I always wanted a sister. I really always wanted a sister. And, you know, I was always like, Mom, I want a sister, until it came to actually having a sister. And my mom and dad told me that we were adopting Peter and Aqua, and I cried, like panic, like anxiety, just cried. And I remember going, Mom, I don't want my life to change. Like, I don't want my life to change. Because as a 7-year-old,
right,
like, I had no idea what that would look like. I didn't like, you know, it was honestly just like a meltdown of fear of like unknown, because I was I had such a blessed childhood, and it was hard for its own reasons. But I like just was so scared. But then I remember being at my grandma's house, and my mom called us into this room and pulled up on this like this computer monitor a picture of Peter and Aqua, and I got to see them for the first time.
Wow.
And it just completely flipped my mindset. And the moment I saw them, I was like bouncing up and down, so excited, couldn't wait. I remember my mom and I going and planning out the colors of my room, and we were going to do pink and purple, and I was going to have pink and she was going to have purple, or switched. I was going to have purple and she was going to have pink, because it was an interchangeable bedspread.
Perfect.
So like, and I loved that idea, and I like ran with it, and I had so much fun. We had bunk beds, and we did like initials and stuff. Like, so I had so much fun, like anticipating having a sister, because it's different when a baby's born. I don't know that experience of having a sibling born younger than me,
right?
You know, but I was immediately getting a kid sister, not a baby sister, like you know, like a little more grown. She was 2, you know, so she was still tiny, but and I was really excited for Peter too, but I just wanted a sister. Love you, Peter, but I just wanted a sister. I was just kind of like, okay, another brother. But I, like, honestly, once he came, I was like, this is the best ever. I was so excited. I remember when my parents left, and I remember the church stepping up and being really supportive of my family.
That's so good.
My mom received a lot of like my mom and dad received a lot of backlash, not necessarily backlash, but people really questioning their decisions. And I found that out later on in life, and that was really hard for me to hear later on, that people weren't like, that the church and family wasn't as like supportive of them. Because it's crazy, but everything God calls you to do is crazy.
Why do you think that was? Maybe like, when you look back now, why do you think the church may have been wrestling with that, or even other people?
I think people can't wrap their heads around that level of inconvenience and sacrifice.
That's a good point.
Because it's inconveniencing their life. It may not fit into the mold that they envision for their family.
Right.
And so, like, whenever I tell people that my family adopted, they're like, "Oh wow, your parents are saints," and I was like, "No, they're not. They just
heard that a lot too.
I don't know. Like, it's just weird." So, anyways, when they came home, we were all waiting at the door. We were so excited, but it was a really hard transition in, because poor Accor was 2 and scared. Just got snatched from, you know, the life she knew. So she cried for like 2 months straight, and I didn't know how to handle it. I processed things way harder than I do now. So I didn't sleep in that room for a while, because she cried every night, but it just became really special. And then the crazy one was the new 3. So I was 18, and my brothers had already moved out, and I was gonna be moving out within the next year. And Zane and I, my older biological brother, felt like there were seats at the table that were empty, and all of us were there, but both Zane and I just felt in our spirit that seats were empty. And we kept poking at my mom and dad, and of course my mom and dad are spread so thin, they were like, absolutely not, absolutely not. And then you know, the whole situation happened where we had to take the kids in, and my parents were like, don't get attached. They could be here a month. They could be here for forever. We went out to dinner for Mexican food, and they told us that they were like, it could be a month. It could be forever. We don't know.
Yeah.
And there was a point at which, you know this, where I thought that they were going to go back to their home. And it was like devastating.
Yeah.
Like devastating.
Yeah.
But then the Lord worked a miracle, and they
really did
got to stay with us. And I was just so excited because I was just like, oh, a bunch of cute little babies. Like, I was just so excited. And so I don't know. By that point, I knew the way that my other 3 siblings had blessed my life.
Right.
And so I was just like, this is just a win. Like, I'm only winning here.
I love that. I love that you say it's a win. That's so, so precious.
Yeah. But I would say, like, it's always been weird to hear people say, like, to my parents, like, oh man, like, they're such saints. And I'm like, no, it's actually a call on the church. Religion that's pure and undefiled is this: visiting widows and orphans in their affliction, James 1. Like, it's absolutely a call on the church. And when people say that about my parents, I'm like, it actually reveals a lot about you. You know, like, that reveals a lot about, you know, because people also think too, this is the last thing I'll say, I'm rambling, and then he can get this.
That's okay.
You know,
this is good.
We're probably way over time.
It's okay.
We're like, so talking.
That's okay.
But, wait, I lost my train of thought. Oh, yes.
It reveals a lot about you.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, but what I was saying was, oh, you might have another question. Do you have any other questions on adoption?
Keep going.
Okay. I would say, people always say, like, oh, you know, I'm afraid that I won't love them like my own biological children. I won't love them like my biological siblings. And, like, from me, where all of my sisters are adopted, like, and where all but one are adopted, I can testify to the fact that that's just so not true. Like, me and Peter always joke, we're like, we're blood, because we are.
Yes, it transcends biology to me.
I truly don't see it. Like, I truly don't see them any different. Because God doesn't see us that way. You know what I mean? Exactly. I don't know. It's just I truly, like, like, objectively don't see them any different than I do my biological family.
Yeah. And I know that I would say, just from what I know of them, they believe that, and they have been welcomed and loved like they are their own, and they are their own. It's just a different way of coming into a family. And it's been such a beautiful example of opening your home and opening your heart and serving and loving. It's just,
well, and the special thing is, they're chosen. We weren't chosen I wasn't chosen by my mom. They were, you know, like, they were selected.
Yeah.
You know, and it's not like that you go through a book and you pick, but, like, they were chosen.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. God had a very incredible plan, and Mark and Charmaine would never have said when they were first married, this is what we're going to do. And I think that's just a testimony to living with open hands to whatever God is going to call you to do, just like what the two of you are doing, and how you've had to move away from your family, Mallory, and you're in a different state. But you're like, okay, this is where I am. This is where God's planted me, and this is where we're going to serve as a couple. So it's a wonderful testimony. So Christian, what about you? Coming into this family with all these adopted children and this large family, not that you don't have a large family, but I mean, just what is your perspective, just coming into their family and the idea of adoption?
Yeah. So I've always known that adoption is such a beautiful representation of the gospel, and because like Mallory said, those kids were chosen, right?
Yeah.
There's something special there.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's the same special thing that is when that God chose us, right? You know, it's like he adopted us into sonship with him, you know, and I think, like, we are adopted sons and daughters into the promise that was originally for the Israelites, right? So it's like, it's a beautiful picture of the heart of God.
Yes.
In that it doesn't matter, right? It doesn't matter who you are, what you've done. You can still be a part of my kingdom, my family.
Yeah.
and I'm gonna give you my name. You know, like that all that stuff is really symbolic, and
Yeah.
it comes from God. And
Yeah.
what's funny is that I got into, I wouldn't say an argument, but I was I was talking to with someone who I was talking to someone, and the whole idea of adoption came up as like a solution to this thing that we were talking about, and I
Mm.
was like, well, I was like, and like they were like, well, why don't you just adopt then? You know, and I was like, I will. That's what I said in the conversation, and like,
Was it about abortion?
yeah, it was about abortion, and I was like, well, you know, I was like 18 years old or whatever. I was like, well, yeah, I am gonna adopt, and then
Then
they were
you
literally
met
like,
me.
well, you know, calm down, you know, like you know, and I was like, and I thought about it, and I was like, maybe it made me think, and then like I like I think the Lord used that conversation to like awaken that thought in my head, and
Wow.
it makes so
Yeah.
much sense because I had thought about it for a while.
Which is hilarious.
I was like, wow,
Yeah.
wait, Christians are just supposed to be adopting? Because I had never really never
Mm.
thought about that. You know, like adoption wasn't in my family, and I knew it was a beautiful thing, but I was like, oh, should believers actually like all consider this seriously? Like
Mm.
all of us should be doing that, and like I
Mm-hmm.
wrestled with that, and I was like, actually, I think that's true.
It's a call on the church.
I think it's a call. Jesus said, you
Mm.
know, religion that is pure and undefiled is this, that you would be there for orphans and
Yeah.
widows.
Yeah.
So it's like the only thing that you really get a brownie point for is adopting and being there for widows. It's just, which is so beautiful, because when is that ever convenient, right, for you? When does that ever actually give you points in life? Like it only takes,
It only takes, yeah.
It also it takes from you, but it
Mm.
gives to the world, and
Absolutely.
you're a representation of Jesus here on earth. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
I think the Lord had prepped me a little bit.
Which is funny because I was like, I'm definitely adopting. I know how like awesome it is. And there's some statistic of like, if there's a certain percentage of churches in America, if each family adopted one child, orphanages would be empty in the US.
Mm. I'm sure there's a good stat on that one. I
And
don't know the
so,
stats, but yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. It's a hard call, and it's not an easy call, and not everybody does it, and people are all called to different things too. And sometimes when a family does adopt, the church comes in and they all support in kind of different ways to walk with that family. And I've seen that
And
time and time
people like
again.
and people tutored my siblings, people
Yeah.
babysat my siblings, we had people give anonymous gifts of money.
Yeah.
The Lord actually had $100 bill just show up on our kitchen table one morning when the doors
Yeah.
were locked. We have no idea how it got there. The Lord just put it there. So, but yeah, the church absolutely
Yeah.
showed up for us every time.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. I can see that for sure. I know so many stories that your mom has shared with me over the years, and it really
I
is
bet you know more than I do,
fascinating.
to be honest. You probably know
Well,
more than I do.
maybe, but I mean, certain things maybe, but you just have this really unique inside perspective of being a sibling, and so it's really neat how God placed it on your parents' heart, and the impact is going to go on for generations. This is a massive choice and step that is so impactful. And even just interviewing Accor too, oh my goodness, I had such a great chat with her, and just listening to her and her smile, and oh, she's just so
She's so cute.
magnetic. And I know she just visited you. You're so lucky.
Yeah, she's the cutest thing ever.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, oh my goodness, I feel like we could talk so much more about this whole idea of adoption. But if there was something you could say, kind of as we finish today, what would you say to somebody who might be in a position like yourself, who is a sibling in an adoptive scenario in a family? What would you say to someone to encourage them today that might be really struggling with it, or how would you encourage them today?
Like struggling with adoption. I would say, um, watching what a small sacrifice in your world does to transform a life is really, really cool.
Mm.
Like, I know where each of my siblings have come from,
Mm-hmm.
and like to know that like a minor shift, well, or a major shift in my life, like was just a small sacrifice in like them like growing up in a
Right.
household that fears
That's
the
a
Lord
great
is just
point.
like the coolest thing ever.
Yeah, that's a great
Um,
point.
and there's a really, really special love awaiting you that's like
Wow.
different than the love I have for Zane, but it's no greater, no less.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like really special.
That's a great
Like
way to say it.
there's like a, I feel so like in the best way, like possessive over them. I'm like, they're mine.
Yeah.
Like I don't know, I love them. And like if it's hard now, just give it time. It's gonna be the most like unique type of love.
Yeah.
You really you get a tiny glimpse into the way that God sees us.
Yeah, that's really great. Thank you for sharing that. I love that so much. Lastly, because you guys were married last year, which was such a beautiful wedding, we had so much fun. It was so beautiful. Um, as a newly married couple, maybe we'll just finish off on this. What would you say to a younger couple today that's navigating just the whole concept of Christianity and dating and how keeping Christ at the center has been impactful for you? What would you say to encourage a couple that's like dating or just maybe they're engaged or newly married? How would you encourage them to keep Christ at the center? Anyone, both of you, you can answer.
Oh, yeah,
He can start. I'll say.
Okay.
Yeah, for us, it's very interesting because the Lord was so at the center from the beginning.
Yeah.
I'd say the beginning matters. How it starts matters.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That's good.
I think God can redeem things, no doubt, but
Yeah.
the beginning matters, and like
Yeah.
you have the power to set that up.
Love
Like
that.
the Lord was so, like we said, designed. That's our word for our beginning, and it's like when God designs it, when God makes it, it's God is so interwoven in all of the details that you don't really have to worry about him being
You
in the
don't have
middle.
control.
Yeah.
Right? We're like,
So
it's like, oh
true.
yes, these are the separate areas of our relationship. Oh, and
Yeah.
then there's God, right? And it's like, which is like, yes, God is at the center. You can think of him as a magnet holding everything together, but at the same time, he's also like a thread in everything. You know, like that's how I see it in our
Yeah.
relationship. I think you should look at it like that, as like he's literally like weaving our story together,
He
and
is.
I think that's a better view because then you invite him in every day.
Yeah.
You know, like I don't know, waking up and being very disciplined is keeping God at the center. Like making coffee in the morning is keeping God at the center.
Yeah.
Going to work on time is having God in the center.
Yeah.
I say live your life like as worship unto God.
Yeah.
Just like so, like and we like when you say you want to keep God in the center of your relationship, just like in your life, you invite Him in everything. That's how you keep God in the center.
Yeah.
In this area of your life too, it's the same way. You invite Him in everything, and there's not a single day that we go that we don't talk about God or how He's this season of our life, like where we're at, like what He's saying.
He's involved in everything.
Everything, yeah, that's everything.
Yeah.
So it's like that's the way you keep Him at the center. But he's really in everything.
Like,
he's not on the shelf, and you don't pull it down, right? You just
we don't do Bible studies where we like hold hands with our highlighters and do you know what I mean? Like that's not we have our morning like reading the Word like together, and we'll worship together sometimes, which is really special. But
yes,
honestly, well, number one, like we did everything we did in the beginning of our relationship, which is contrast from my last relationship, praise God, is we did everything as best we could above reproach and super open. Like there was nothing hidden.
Really good.
It was so rewarding to get married and realize that we did it right.
Yeah.
I'll say really quick, even when it comes to sexuality, because there's nothing else on earth that goes from sin to worship the moment you get married. And it goes from sin to worship, and it just like it's the coolest thing, it's the most beautiful thing, and it's and you see the Spirit, like you feel the Spirit like make that shift in you, and it's really beautiful. So I would say that we did everything we could as best we could above reproach. We had really hard conversations right away.
Yeah.
Super open, super vulnerable.
Yeah.
everything was just like, we got it all out there like immediately.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, we got all of like anything that would potentially be of conflict. Like, we talked about it.
Yeah. Yep.
And that seems to be a pattern I've seen of couples who like are doing, I think, well.
Yeah. Makes
From
sense.
what I can tell.
Yeah.
I've noticed that they all have like a really strong idea where like they all say, yeah, we talked about everything.
Yeah. This
right
is
up
the,
front.
yeah.
Yeah, and like when you date young, you don't really know yourself yet, so you don't really know what questions to ask. So
Makes
that's why
sense.
it takes
True.
longer. So, but everybody's story is different.
Yes.
But certainly our story was we had some life to go through to figure this.
Yeah,
and then,
and we like I was alongside him in suffering 2 months into knowing him. And
you guys started right off and on fire, walking through fire, right?
Yeah.
Because his dad passed 2 months into us knowing each other.
Yeah.
And so that was like, that was us watching each other handle suffering.
Yeah.
Really, if you want to know if someone is right for you, watch them suffer. See how they suffer. But then, of course, we're like rambling on, so I'll keep it short. But I also just committed everything to prayer. Currently commit everything to prayer.
Yeah, it's so
I
good.
prayed the house down about whether or not to marry him, because I knew I was going to uproot my entire life and plans to go with him. But I was like, Lord, you just got to show me. And like, he was just constantly like, the Lord would speak to him and he would say something to me that would resolve those worries, just like one after another. And so anything that's in my brain worth my worry is, I just commit to prayer.
Yeah. Well, he had you guys right together for such a time as this. It was the way God designed it. You guys would walk together through that trial and give you that solid foundation that you didn't even know you were looking for. Just kind of God just said, okay, you guys need each other and you're going to start off like this. And you've been strong ever since. And it's such a beautiful example of walking through a godly relationship, moving into marriage. And you guys have a lot of years ahead of you to witness to other people and to mentor other people. And I think that's going to open up a lot of doors for you to continue to just bless other people and speak into their life. You're so young, but yet you've experienced so much and you have so much talent and skill. And the most important thing is your love for the Lord is so obvious. And I know he's walking with you guys and blessing you, and he will lead you and direct you exactly where you're supposed to go at that right time. And you guys know that better than anyone now because of all the things that you've already gone through, right? So, well, thank you so much for your time today, Christian and Mallory, for sharing your hearts and talking about adoption and your journey with music and ministry. I'm excited to share the links to the music that you guys have. And I'll link the conversation that we had as well, Mallory, a little while ago, which I still can't believe it was that long ago, but I guess but it was a pleasure to have you, and thank you for your time. And I look forward to another conversation when we can. So have a great evening.